Perfect. Oh, and James is also not speaking Hebrew. So there we go. We have two, and we're very friendly here. So we're going to do this in English. For those of you who have been to my session before, I will try to kind of like breeze through the things that we covered before. You will see here content that we talk about in the sales and in the customer success modules in Silicon Valley 101. And I'll try to leave as much time as I can for questions. So greetings from actually my apartment from New York, but in the background, our management floor in the Tel Aviv headquarters of Guesty, in my office that I haven't been to for the last 2 months, even though I should have been there 3 times by now since mid-March. So I do miss Israel, and Chag Ha'atzmaut Sameach to everybody. Let me just share my screen. Can you guys see it now?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So a little bit about myself. I only look like it's my bar mitzvah today. I'm not actually 12 years old. My name is Omer. I'm the managing director of Guesty, and I manage Guesty's global strategy as well as all of our operations in the Americas, which is about 60 or about 2/3 of the revenue for Guesty, which is an Israeli-based company with 9 global offices in the travel tech industry. For those of you who are asking, how's the travel industry doing? We've had better months, but we're trying to be as strong as we can. Previously, I was also the managing director of WalkMe Growth at WalkMe, which is their fastest growing segment for startup companies, also an Israeli-based company. And before that, I was an original member of the senior management team at Gainsight, the company that sort of coined customer success management. And I moved to the US 10 years ago to do my MBA at Stanford University, where I'm still a guest coach and a guest lecturer, now over Zoom as well. So that's a little bit about me. In terms of where I'm coming from, I'm actually in my previous life a journalist and a diplomat, notoriously known as one of the doll operators of Doody-Doo from Daphne and Doody-Doo. Yes, seriously. So I guess I'm a proven case that you can turn from operating a doll in your teens to being a war zone journalist here in Tahrir Square during the revolution in your early 20s to being a tech executive in your 30s. My mom asked me if that means that at least if in my 30s, I'm going to be married. So TBD. But that's a little bit about myself. Let's talk about what we want to do today. I want to talk really in 2 minutes why now is the time to focus on this. I will claim any questions? No, just kids. I want to focus a little bit about why now is the time to focus on those things. I will claim, and those who have been to my session, that it's always right to refresh your playbooks and be smart about, you know, ironing out your operation for sales and customer success. I think now it's absolutely critical, and we'll talk about that. Next, I want to basically project to you again my basic framework to everything sales and customer success. I totally stole it from Peter Thiel. It's the idea of one-to-end approach to sales and customer success. We'll get there in a second. Then I'm going to show you a little bit of the basic frameworks to consider on how to polish your playbooks for both CS and customer success, and we'll brush through them. It's going to be a little bit of drinking from the fire hose. And so a lot of it will be just like, you know, whatever resonates to you, take notes, think about what it means to your business, because we're going to go through this a lot, but this session will be available on YouTube as well. We'll talk a little bit about the secret sauce, which is the handoff process between sales and customer success, especially in Israeli companies. Those are very isolated, which actually creates a terrible situation that Israeli companies are notorious in, which is establishing good process for sales, good process for customer success, nothing in between besides very angry customers who are wondering why they need to say the same thing to do different functions in a relatively small company. So we'll talk about that. And then I hope that we'll have, well, realistically 10 to 15 minutes of open forum about your questions and scenarios, as long as you think they might be relevant for the broader forum. Any questions or any gaps between this and what you expected to see today? Or are we good? Okay, Jessica will stop me if she thinks we need to. So before we get started, just a few quick things that is very important for me to say. This is not the Bible. I am a relatively young executive. I feel very strongly about the things that I'm going to show you. I think that enabled me to help lead a few companies to a very successful position and create categories, I think, in our markets. But it's not the Bible. It has worked for me in SaaS companies. It has worked for many companies that I advised over the years, especially at Gainsight, where we advise thousands of companies about establishing their customer success operations. But every business is different. Every use case is different. So treat that as as somebody that is out there, as an approach that has been productive and efficient for many companies, but might not be the best and the most suitable for you. And this process is iterative by definition, which means you try it, you see if you see results, you take enough time to actually evaluate if you see results, and then you try it again and you tweak that. The one thing that is true about hypergrowth companies, which you know, is that you're sort of managing a different company every 3 months. And by definition, it means that you need to tweak your playbooks. It begs the question, why do I need to even build playbooks if every 3 months I need to change them? And the answer is, if you're not actually having playbooks, you end up not just inventing your playbooks every 3 months, but really inventing your entire process, employees, teams, company, and structure. And so I did find that the best thing to do is to create those playbooks, feel good about them, and iterate them a little bit marginally every few months as your company changes. The other thing that I would say, in the short term, small and fast-growing companies, people always trump processes. You can have amazing process for customer success. And we can agree today that customer success, for example, in your company needs to be close to the product organization, but your head of product is heads down with other stuff, and your sales leader actually knows everything about relationships and customer success. And you might end up actually aligning customer success to sales in your organization and not to product, even though the process that we create here and that we recommend demands something else. That's fine. In the short term, a lot of time you will get decisions based on people. Who are the people you're working with? What are they good at? I would claim that in the long term, it's not sustainable to get those decisions because of people and managers. You first need to understand what is right process-wise, neutralize everything around the people, and then tweak the process based on the people you have. But the fact that you have specific people is not sustainable. It's not something that can always walk with you. I would claim that the playbooks needs to be there, and you need to create them regardless of the people that you have. If it doesn't make sense to you, I'm happy to discuss that one-on-one later. So why now? Why do we actually need to focus on the enterprise sales books and the enterprise customer success books right now? I think the answer to that is that enterprise sales is going to be even more meaningful than it was before in the post-COVID world. The reason is small companies are going to either not weather the storm or have to make very significant shifts that will result in either less investment in vendors and less investment in technology, which might impact you guys, or they might end up shifting their entire focus because of changes in the market and the world, which again might alter your relationship with them. It's really the time to optimize for the big logos and the big companies because they are more stable. They are the ones who can pay. They are the ones who make plans for 12, 24, 36 months and not just the next 3 months. And your investors will want to know that your solution, whatever it is in whatever industry it is actually aligning with the big boys. And for that reason, I think that now is really the right time to focus on your enterprise playbooks. The other thing is that right now, marketing spend for most companies, unless you're doing, I don't know, video conferencing or home entertainment or home fitness, for a lot of us, the marketing spend now is lower. The lead generation is lower. And now it's a little bit of a hiatus to actually take our head down and understand what is the process we build for the recovery. And so I think now, more than any time in the last 5 years, is the best time to focus on your enterprise playbooks. Let's talk about how companies grow in general. By the way, any questions here? Now is a good time to ask. No. Okay. Jessica, please monitor if you can the Q&A because I can't see them. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer. So how companies grow. And those who have been to my session before know that. I'm a big fan of the 0 to 1 idea that Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal and many other companies, coined. I think Peter is a very smart man for almost anything that is not politics. He was like the #1 billionaire to support Donald Trump for presidency it has worked great for this country. But when we don't talk about politics and talk about this controversial issue, the idea of 0 to 1 is actually, I think, very on point. What Peter Thiel says is a lot of things, and I highly recommend the book. Probably there will be a movie. But in general, companies, I believe, have two main stages, 0 to 1 and 1 to N. The 0 to 1 is, I believe, the fascinating stage that most of you founders are in. There is a problem, there is no solution. I am trying to create a company that for the first time create a solution to a problem. I'm moving from 0 to 1, from there's no solution to there is solution, from 0 customer to 1 key customer, from no product market fit to a first product market fit. 1 to N is the scaling motion. I already know how I'm solving the issue. I know how my number 1 customer looks like. I know how my target customers look like. It's now about how do I duplicate that? How do I apply the solution to other industries, to other customers? How do I grow quickly and efficiently after I found this initial product market fit? The thing is that most companies don't sufficiently change the way that they sell and the way they serve their customers, even though they move through this process. And so even though they already arrive in the 1 and need to go to the N, they end up basically playing a 0 to 1 process all along, which is very wasteful, or they're trying to jump from 0 to N without getting to the 1. In other words, shooting in different directions, selling to a lot of different type of customers in different segments, in different industries, without really arriving at a product market fit that is scalable to 1 initial customer, or really identifying the problem and the solution. And that must sound familiar to many of you. And if not, let me know. I want to know what you guys are working on. For sales, I would claim that there's actually another stage, which is the small n. So it's about 0 to 1, 1 to small n, n to big N, which is kind of like the process for eternity of reiterating and scaling your company to be a unicorn or beyond that. And it means that the sales process needs to be very, very different in any stage of the company's growth. That's also true, by the way, for customer success, but let's talk about sales. When I sell to my number 1 customer, when I'm really trying to achieve a product market fit, the sales process is very personal. It needs to really help me understand who am I talking with, what is the problem, is that really the problem, how do they call it, what is the terminology, who's involved, who's in charge of fixing it, who thinks they are in charge of fixing it, but not actually, who is influencing the decision, how much time, what is the urgency, what is the budget? There's so many questions, and it all needs to be very personal. I go to their office, I bring them coffee, I check how they're doing, I make sure that their kids are doing all right. I do everything in my power to arrive to this 1 and make this process personal, so I know everything about the problem and the solution. The 1 to small n is a consultative process. There is some kind of a back and forth. I'm asking them a lot of questions, but I also give them some information about what worked for those 0 to 1 customers that I work with. I'm really trying to understand the process. I'm trying to validate everything I've done in the 0 to 1 and see if that process is also applicable for, a handful, 2 handfuls of other customers. Very consultative motion, very bidirectional. Small n to big N is a totally scalable motion. I know my shit by now. I have a problem, I have found a solution. I found that the solution is applicable to not just 1 customer that has their very unique tweaks. It's applicable to a lot of customers that have some kind of common denominator. And I now want to take this process and scale it in a very efficient way. I'm trying to see if I can make this kind of process with less calls, less resources, more fit, higher retention, higher pricing. It's really about, having those little bragim and really working on those little things marginally to make this the strongest, most efficient, speedy, reliable process I can. Make sense? So now it's very heady. Let's talk about tachlis, as we say. The step 1 in every sales cycle is understanding where you are and what is the kind of cycle that you're in, and making sure that the cycle that you're in is aligning to where you are in your company life cycle. And for that, we need to channel our inner Ilana. People who have seen this before know it. I'm a journalist in my background. I really believe in asking questions. And I think that when it comes to Israeli founders, there's a huge gap. We have a lot of chutzpah, we are not too shy to ask questions in general or make claims. We don't have a confidence issue in most cases, but surprisingly, we're not asking the right questions. We really try to wine and dine. We really try to ask for the business and convince people. And we have a lot of determination about telling them what they need, but we're not actually putting the right questions and taking notes of the answers. There's a list here of questions that I always use. I think this is the most basic list of questions. I think that in reality, if you got into a conversation with a meaningful decision maker or champion in a sales cycle on a first or second call and you didn't answer all of those questions, you're doing it wrong. And I think you need to have another set of 5 to 10 questions that are specific to your segment and market. You need to walk away and know who is the decision maker. You need to know who is your key influencer. So maybe your champion is telling you, I will get the decision, but then maybe they don't own the budget. They just think that they're getting the decision. And maybe there's another influencer outside, like an investor, that is going to be very hands-on. You want to know those things ahead of time. What do they care about? What are they being measured on in their business? Their next promotion, what is it tied for or to? Who else compete for this budget? What is the evaluation process? It's amazing that we don't ask those questions. We're kind of shy about that, but not shy about telling somebody that they don't do their work correctly or that they need a solution that they don't even think that they need yet. Let's channel our chutzpah to actually get the information we need and understand what's the cycle we're in. Don't leave a first conversation without having those questions answered. And it doesn't have to be you bring a question and say, I need those questions answered. It can be something that you infer from the conversation. It's really being a journalist. Triggering event is a big one. We always, as Israelis, and in general as founders, think that the triggering event is always because I solve an issue that is a real issue. But a lot of time there needs to be a triggering event. COVID creates a lot of triggering events. Retention becomes huge. You know, runway is getting shorter for a lot of companies, and so efficiency is becoming big. You might have a triggering event right now lurking all over the world. Help them understand that and make sure that you put it on the table and you confirm and validate that. Risk assessment. What are the possible risks for the cycle? That's really meaningful. According to that, we need to, yes, question.
Be changed because of the situation we're in right now? I mean, would you have the same slide 2 months ago?
I did. So the slide was 2 months ago. It is. This is why it's in such terrible resolution. Yes, those questions are always true. I think it's even more true now. If I were to do a conversation today with a prospect, I would say something like, my first question would be like, how are you guys doing? You know, situation is changing, and what we cared about as a company ourselves 2 months ago is not what we care about now. What do you guys care about? We believe that our solution is transformational to our customers, and we want to really align to the pain points. What are the pain points in your business right now? You will learn so much by saying that. You will also create a good dialogue if you share a little bit about your company. Hey, we cared a lot about growth and new logos. Now we really care about, you know, sustainable business and companies that see this as a long-term relationship. What is changing in your book of business? But yes, absolutely. The slide is always true. It's about the prioritization. Things about triggering event and risks are now the less like questions here. I would maybe start with them now. I would ask them how their business is doing before I ask who's the decision maker. By the way, I would never ask somebody, are you the decision maker? But I would say, this problem we're talking about, who else is impacted by it in the organization? And do you think that we should involve them in the conversation? This way, you're not antagonizing, but getting the answer. Does that make sense? Okay, head nod. Now it's about shaping the cycle accordingly. So once we actually understand what kind of cycle we're in, how do we shape the entire conversation around that? Those who have been to my sessions in the last 5 years, I say that you need to be kind of like Tzipi Livni, who moved a lot of parties and really shaped the way that her own agenda goes based on the political situation. I'm glad to hear that situation have changed, and we now have a new star for this, which is Orly Levy Abekassis. That's a new one. So now you need to be Orly Levy in this one. I know it doesn't sound great to most of you, which basically means you need to be very, very, very flexible. to shape the kind of cycle based on what you infer from the first conversation. That means that your collateral needs to align with that. So many companies have a 30 seconds video that says what is it that they're doing, and they don't put the day of working on tweaking that kind of video or PDF that explains what they do based on different use cases. It's a mistake. It's a mistake. People want to have this information chewed for them. They want to know and get the validation that you're solving their problem. It doesn't work that you're going on a call and say, yeah, of course we do that. We do that and so much more. We do that for you and this for the other customer and this for the other customer. They need you to do the packaging for them. Each customer grew up as a kid and their mom told them that they're very, very unique, like a snowflake or a unicorn, and there's nobody like them. It doesn't matter that you know that all your customers share about 80% of the use case and only 20% is different. In their mind, they're 80% different and nobody will convince them otherwise. Don't fight it. Put the extra few hours to make sure that you have collateral that aligns with each one of the use cases so they feel like you're talking exactly to them and building a solution just for them. Even if this is a scalable cycle, your customer want to know that you're still in the consultative stage, maybe even the personal. The exact outreach needs to align with the organization. If there's a decision maker who's a C-level, make sure a C-level is reaching out. Don't leave that to a rep. The pricing needs to align with the budget, but still push to maximum value. Look at your pricing right now. If it's the same like 3 months ago, you're not doing it right probably. Or at least have a very good answer why it needs to be the same. And if your pricing is based on costs and not on value, it's usually not right. Negotiation tactic that align with the cycle. If I'm now talking with a champion and I expect that then I will go to a C-level and then there's a procurement team that comes in, I don't want to bring my price and say my lowest thing to the champion because every new person that will be introduced to the cycle will ask for another discount. That's their job. So I want to know what I'm about to actually face. So the entire shaping of the cycle needs to be according to everything that I learned in the cycle. By the way, shameless plug, journalists make great salespeople. Curious people make great salespeople. People who know to listen and ask questions makes great salespeople. People who just, talk and do a show, not making great salespeople, again, highlighted by COVID. They can't take them out to a restaurant right now. They can't throw money at them at strip clubs. Does anybody even do that anymore? It's only about going on a call and listening. Hire those people. Hire the inquisitive, the personable people that can actually hold this conversation and then relay to the product and marketing team what they need to change in the cycle. I know we have very limited time, so I'm gonna kind of brush through it. Everything that has to do with the stages of the cycle needs to change. If it's a very short cycle or a long cycle, is demo even a stage? Do you need to do a discovery? We already said that you do. Is there a planning? Is there a contracting? Or is the idea that after the demo, you just send them a quote and they sign? Collateral, do we want to do it in video? Do we want to do it in a one-pager? Do we want to have a deck that is sent to them after? Do we believe that we have case studies for each one of the use cases? Collateral is huge. And if I'm now a founder, I spend a lot of time on collateral right now. I am interviewing and spoiling my best customers by sending them like stuff home, like packages and gifts, and trying to interview them and create a case study with them so I can then use that to acquire new customers. I'm creating a new 1 minute and 4 minute video and 30 seconds video based on specific use cases. I create a prospecting library that have templates of cold emails so that when I bring salespeople 6 months from now, they already know how an email should look like coming from us. Price lists, negotiation sheets, battle cards is a huge thing. In all my companies, it has been godsend. Understanding who are your competitors, what do they have, what do they not have, where do you trump them, where do you don't. So when your salespeople are going on a call and basically being told, hey, in that specific element, your competition is better than you, they're able to say yes, but in that specific case, those other 3 that are very meaningful for you were much better than them and we're working on that one thing. Make sure that none of your salespeople is surprised, especially if they're, again, salespeople that you bring on board and don't know the product and the cycles as much as you do. So why do we still fuck up? Excuse my Chinese. I have been giving this session for, I think, 6 different generations of Silicon Valley 101 at Icon. Every single generation comes back, and then we have another session with many of them about some mistakes that happen and try to understand. Here are the most common mistakes that you're making around sales. We look at the mirror instead of at the prospect. We look at ourselves and we say, our company is so great in solving this issue. And then we go to the prospect and tell them, this is the problem you have. This is why we're awesome. And we say even sometimes sentences like, you don't understand. This is not the problem. Let me tell you what the problem is. This is wrong. Is it possible that you know the problem better than the customer? Yes. Is it possible that they don't identify their problem correctly? Yes. But they're the customer. And so unless you actually relate to their pain point and help them understand why there are other pain points that they're neglecting, they're just going to turn off. If you're going to say to a prospect, you don't understand, you lost them. If you are looking at the mirror in why you think you're better and then telling other people why your solution is better, instead of really understanding what they want to say and how to position that, you're going to lose the cycle. And it's really hard because we always believe in what we're doing. And we actually believe that what we need is to educate the market. It's really usually not about educating the market. It's about positioning our solution in a way that meets the demonstrated need that the customers verbalize. And if that's not clear, happy to answer questions about that. We don't bother mapping the decision makers. We go on a cycle. We are trying to prospect a customer for years, and then a little nice guy named Jack or a little nice gal named Brittany is answering us from a big customer. And we're sure that we found, the Holy Grail. And then we talk with Brittany and we nurture Brittany. And then after 6 months, Brittany loses her job. Or we figure out that Brittany never talked to her manager about our conversations. And Brittany has no budget. And so let's make sure that we understand who are we talking with, where they are in the organization, who is the decision maker, and who do we need to bring in to engage with them. Empower your champions who are very important foot in the door to present you an access to somebody higher up in the organization. We underestimate the importance of complicated nature of compliance. You can do an amazing cycle, and then somebody will ask you if you're HIPAA compliant, or do you have safe harbor, or can you actually process, private data in Europe? And if you didn't look to that, it is the kind of thing that will just stop a cycle. You can do an amazing value, personal relationship for 6 months, think that nail it, and then somebody will ask if you have a SOC 2 certification and you don't, and it's a dead end. Try to be smart about that. Understand who is involved, understand if there's any sensitive points there. What is it that you're not seeing around compliance that might be very, very important? Those are the processes that take time. And unlike product development, marketing, sales, commercial terms, you have less control over them. So identify them early and approach them. And we always think that we get a yellow card and it's actually a red one. We are always trying just a little bit too much, and somebody is saying I don't think that it's the right idea, or this is interesting, can we talk in a month? And we think that it's, an invitation to try again, and it's actually not. In Israel, a lot of time people will say, yo, bro, chill, or אחי, פחות מתאים, בוא נדבר עוד כמה שבועות. You don't get that in the US. And when somebody tells you interesting in a meeting and don't email you back, it doesn't mean that they're actually interested. And it sounds obvious to you, but time and time again, we see those issues. You don't get yellow card with enterprise customers. One day they just shut down, and it takes you a few weeks before you understand you actually got the red card and you didn't even notice that. Any questions about sales? We're halfway and we're in good timing. I know this is very fast. This is usually a 2-hour session by itself, and we usually talk about a lot of examples, but this is, again, drinking from the fire hose COVID situation. Any questions about sales? Okay. Sales is just the beginning. It's the beginning because a lot of investors now understand that acquiring logos is relatively easy. I give my solution for dimes on the dollar. I show that I have a lot of customers, and sometimes I'm being deployed in a tiny, weeny, little subdivision and I say that Google is my customer. What they care about is revenue growth and customer success. The new world that we're in now is a world that really optimizes for customer success. And so I wanted to give you a few notes on customer success that has been very true to me when we worked about customer success books and really trying to formalize the industry at Gainsight. I had the luck of being part of Gainsight from 2013 to, I believe, 2016, really being part of building the Pulse, which is the biggest conference in that industry. So a little bit of things that we've seen there. First of all, it's a company-wide mission. It really is a company-wide mission. Everything around churn, renewal, retention metrics, they need to be measured as a core metrics across the company. If you're a CEO and you're starting an all hands just saying how much was sales without talking about renewals, without talking about expansion, without talking about the retention of your customers, you're doing it wrong. You're basically creating a situation in which hunting is the only motion and there's no farming of accounts. It's not right. Getting new sales is relatively easy, and then your customer just leaves through the door. You are bringing them in, you are trusting the fact that they're going to stay with you with a lifetime value of 7 or 8 years, but then they leave after 18 months. It just doesn't work. Make sure that your entire company see renewal, retention, churn as metrics that really align to them. I would say that your executive team might also have to have that as part of their compensation. Report it to your board, report it to your investors. Make sure that you make everybody accountable to the customer success and align your success, not just with the success of your sales executives, but your customers. Onboarding is in the core of most churn cases. This is a piece of data that I found fascinating. 87% of the churn, even if it happens 10 years after they joined your company, is rooted, not rotted, rooted in onboarding. What does that mean? If a company is leaving you after 7 years, if a customer has churned after 4 years, in most cases, it means that they never actually onboarded correctly. They did not set up the solution early. You did not align with them about what they actually want to get out of the solution. You did not make sure that they actually see the value that they need. You did not create a success plan that says, what are they going to see in terms of value now, in 3 months, in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years. And as a result, when they actually churn, you figure out that they never saw the initial value in the first place. 87%. What does that mean? Onboarding is a core function in your organization, and you need to have your A players on it. You need to have your sales team engaged during the onboarding to make sure that the onboarding is actually happening. Maybe even get to a point that some of the compensation of the sales rep is determined after the onboarding to make sure that they didn't just sell empty value. And you want to make sure that you have a real handover between sales and customer success and real executive sponsorship to make sure that the onboarding is done correctly. It is so much easier to upfront that. Also, very equitable to the COVID situations. You know, countries that contained the situation early did not have to actually deal with outbursts after. Customer success and COVID are very similar in that. Front loading can save you years of problems after. And focusing on handover is key. Don't let the customer pay for the price of insufficient internal communications. I'll give you a good example. Something that I started at Gainsight, or we started at Gainsight as a customer success team, and I took with me to the companies after. A part of the commission for the sales team is actually dependent on their onboarding experience. We sent a survey to each one of our customers 3 months after they signed their contract and said, did your sales rep prepare you correctly and set the right expectations for your onboarding experience? And if they gave their sales rep a 5 out of 5 or above 8, their sales rep got them the full commission or an extra 2% of the deal or any kind of metric. That really created a situation where customer success and sales are in it together, and the sales reps know that they are being held accountable in their paycheck to make sure that they don't make empty promises, that they're involved, that they care about the onboarding, that they set the expectation correctly. CS leader is maybe the toughest position to recruit for. By the way, another one is a solution consultant, solution engineer. Those are, like, I find, the two hardest positions, because you need somebody who has product understanding and proficiency, but also the commercial sense. They need to be technical person, but also a relationship person. They're basically a potential CEO, but younger or earlier in their career. It's very hard to recruit to this position. Start recruiting for that early. And as part of the evaluation of your CS team, make sure that they meet both the product team and the sales team. It's really important that they can work with both, because they really need to have שתי אונות, שמאלית וימנית, one with the technical and one with the commercial. Any questions about those notes? Okay. We believe that there are four basically models of customer success organizations that I want to introduce to you, and I want to encourage you to think about what kind of customer success organization you have today and what is the one that you want to become realistically. We all want to be predictive. There aren't many predictive customer success organizations out there. Reactive customer success organization are the firefighters. Sami Akabai is how I called them. Basically, you call your team customer success managers, but they're sort of customer shit managers. They are handling customer shit. People calling them and say that they have a problem, and they are trying to grapple quickly and reply so that the customers are getting answer. They're sort of support managers with a halo around them and a nicer title on LinkedIn. But basically, they don't initiate. They are responsive. Things happen, they reply. Informed customer success organizations, and as you can see here, they see better performance on revenue. Informed are basically organizations that have been reactive, but learn some patterns. They know what's actually happening. They do get all the signs. They collect all the data. They know what's happening in the organization. And based on that, they know to basically align themselves to whatever reactive work is going to be needed of them. So I'm informed. I know what's happening in the organization. I know to identify which customers are at risk. I know to expect that they will have more volume. I know to actually align more resources to them. It allows me to still be reactive, but be much smarter in the way that I react. Proactive is kind of like the aspirational for most companies, but actually within reach. And the idea there is, I know in advance when a customer joins what is going to be their pitfalls, because I know other customers that look like them, and I know where they usually fail, and I create a process that allows me to proactively make sure that I minimize the risk for them. Playbooks is a big part of being proactive. Processes is a big time of being proactive. So number one, it's about how quickly I react to all the things. How quickly I actually reply to any email from customer. Number two, informed how much data I collect. Number three, how I operate with this data. How I create proactive processes based on them. Number four is already one step ahead. Very few organizations get there. We all say we want to get there, but it's really hard, and that's really predictive. When a customer joins me, I have all the data and the processes, but not just the processes. I know in advance exactly at what point there's going to be a problem in their implementation, and I know exactly how to actually send them an automated email to predict what's going to be the problem. I can infer about something that happened a month ago, what it will mean for their renewal a year from now. I can, create a process that really is based on not just the data now, but projections for future data. It's really a very complicated process. You can see here how it looks like, how each organization, reactive, informed, proactive, and predictive, looks along 5 different pillars of customer success that Gainsight created. And again, this is IP of Gainsight that they have shared, and so I can share it with you. What I suggest for each organization, and you can see here one organization that have done that, to basically align what is your current stage of your customer success organization and what is the target stage that you want to get to by the end of 2020 or 2021. What you can see here, and again, I hope that you guys will download this after, is how a reactive organization looks like in terms of how they operationalize the customer lifecycle, how they manage a risk, how they demonstrate value to their customers, how they drive advocacy and expansion in their playbook, and how they enable cross-functional visibility, which comes from the point that customer success is a group sport. And then how an informed, proactive, and predictive organization does the exact same thing. So again, read that after, understand where you are, understand where you want to be, and then we can talk about the playbooks that you need to create for that, because that's, of course, a much more of a one-on-one. But this is, I find, an amazingly impactful framework to understand where you are and where you can get to. Yes, I heard a question. Yes, no, maybe. Okay, moving on. Use COVID to make decisions how to move from reactive to proactive and maybe even predictive. A lot of the questions that you need to ask yourself. Yes, question? Question? No. Okay, moving on. Question that you want to ask yourself right now when you're building your customer success motion or trying to really up-level it to make it proactive or predictive is, what should your customer success organization include? If they're part of the product org, you put them under the product organization, they're going to be focused on onboarding, for example. They're going to be very technical. And that's usually, you know, smaller companies, early stage, where product and getting to the product market fit is the #1 thing. If your organization is already growing, you're already in the 1 to N, they need to be part of the revenue org. Why? Customer success at this point is much more account management. It's about the renewal, it's about the commercial. You measure them not just based on how many customers are successfully deployed the solution, but, you know, retention rates. That's more mature. Where are you? That will help you understand who are you recruiting and who do they need to report to. Who owns the renewal motion? If you have a sales organization that is doing that, that might be early stage where you want whoever established the relationship to continue the relationship and do the renewal. But when you're growing, you actually want to have a customer success org that is targeted, and you have the hunter's motion, the sales organization that is very aggressively going at new logos, and the farmer's model that is really optimizing for the aggressive growth. You don't want to do it too early because you don't want to create a situation where you're actually wasting your burn rate on 2 different organizations, hunter and farmers, without having a solution that can actually support this kind of aggressive growth. How to segment your customers. Early on, again, it's about product market fit. So you probably have segmentation of customers based on the usage of the platform, their use cases, where they are in their deployment. Later on, you're going to segment your customers as a company based on their potential. Are they a big customer? Can I grow them 5x? Can they, you know, eventually be my meteor customer, my huge customers, my rocks? What is the customer life cycle? How a relationship looks like? Product training, quarterly business reviews, who takes part in that? Can you make them virtually? Do you want to travel to them once travel resumes in the world? What's the executive mapping? Is there like a CEO to CEO relationship? What is a growth plan? Are we aligning with them? If we will deliver A, B, and C, then in a few, you know, in a year during renewal, would you consider bringing us to other business units in the organization? And who is in charge of driving advocacy in the customer base? What we see now is that prospecting emails are a dime a dozen. Customers want to buy solutions that they see their competitors using. They buy based on other people in their network that are using your solution. And so advocacy is bigger than any time before. You need to eventually have a dedicated function of customer advocacy, but are they going to be part of customer success? Are they going to be part of the marketing group? Maybe it's you. Maybe you are in charge of creating the relationship with your best customers and drive them into being a case study. And lastly, don't forget the handoff procedure. What we see a lot of time is a lot of founders that say, I'm going to have the best sales organization. I'm going to have the best customer success organization. I have a lot of money and I can afford both of them, but they don't create a process of handover and they don't create accountability in the sales org over the customer success org. Condition a close deal in answering handover questions. Just like the Ilana Dayan slide before, make sure that you have a list of questions that the sales reps have to answer before they pass the balls to customer success. And that might include, what is the use case? Why did they buy the solution? What do you think will be the risks? What do we need to achieve first? What will be a success for them? What will make them extend our relationship? Who is the person that we really need to watch for? Who was objecting this during the cycle? Who was a detractor? And we need to make sure that they're happy so they're not telling at the time of renewal, let's just throw this away. Answer all those questions. The worst situation that can happen is that you have a sales rep that is very aggressive, asking all the questions, then pass the ball to customer success. Customer success takes a week to initiate a call. Then they go on a call and they ask the same person the same questions all over again. It's terrible. Make sure that you solidify your questions and form by empowering your CS team. Ask your customer success team, what do you need to know day one when you go on an onboarding call, before you go on a call, to make sure that you are successful and you're set for success. And lastly, consider templatizing implementation types. If you have identified that you have 5 different use cases, create an onboarding process for each one of the 5. Now is a good time to take your customer success team that you still have on the payroll and ask them to create different modules of onboarding based on different use cases. It will help you scale. Okay. Finally, we're at questions. Any questions from everything I talked about? We only have 10 minutes, but I'd love to answer questions. There are also a few that came over email that we can go to, but hopefully we have some question based on what we just covered. Any thoughts?
I have a question. I don't know if you hear me.
Yes, Agit. Hi. Thanks for joining.
Hey. Oh, now I can see myself as well. Yeah, that was awesome. I actually asked my customer success VP, is also field engineering, to join. His name is Nir Shafrir, and I think he's on the line, as well as Dave Kent, that he's head of sales. And I hoped it's in English, and it was. So thank you for that. I think it's, I'm glad I joined. If, for me, it's kind of a comment / maybe a question. I feel like in our sales and customer success, we got to the one to the small n,
okay,
if you will. You know, for the last year, 15 months, no churn. We grow our customers at twice our customers, growth on revenue. We're still a small startup, right? We're talking about in a single-digit revenue, but still it's better than the few 100,000 that we had a couple of years ago. Right. Yet on the marketing side, I believe we're 0 to 1. So there's in alignment between, you know, the sales process that is very personal. We do have all the questions, or most of the questions you had in place. You know, we kind of figure it out, by the way, slowly, too slow as always, right? But what worked for us, what's working for us, and try to put always process in place. Put customer success a year and a half ago that we didn't have before. That I believe was the number one, together with the combination of good sales team to keep the customers happy and all that you said. Yet on the marketing side, we're not there.
So the question is what to do to align marketing with it?
And you know, the answer would be, okay, focus on that, right? But again, if you can be more specific on what the 3 things we need to do in order to get that aligned.
So I think there are 2 things I would say here, because again, it's a very specific situation, I imagine, but I think the best way to drive alignment is actually making sure that everybody is looking at the same metric. So customer success is a good way. And if you're saying the number one thing is to make sure that, you know, through the current situation, we are retaining our best customers, we are customer obsessed, and we understand the top 3 use cases, for example, then you basically create a work environment where you bring customers, customer success, marketing, and sales together. Understand what is working for sales, what are the prospects that they're most successful establishing a dialogue with, then make sure that those use cases are actually translating to success in customer success, and then ask the marketing person, do you now understand how a customer looks like? They're already in the one-to-end, let's bring marketing there. Interview those customers that are successful. Ask them what made them engage with you, and try to tweak the marketing with them. Create a customer advisory board, CAB, that really makes, you know, those 3 or 4 most successful customers, put them in the room with your marketing team, and have the marketing team really cater for them. This way you can actually duplicate the success that you already have to prospects out there that are lookalike. I think that's the best way to kind of like power and push through. And then if you have the metrics of, for example, net retention and net expansion in your management team, then everybody at least have the same eyes on the prize, and the functions that are a little bit behind are actually being up-leveled to be part of the same dialogue. I know it's very general, but I'm not familiar with your case, but is that somewhat helpful?
Very much, and I loved your one of the takeaways that I took from here is really to align the collateral to specific cases, and that would be a great way to capture a new prospect, right? Coming with the specific case studies or environment. I also love what you said about starting with how are you doing, right? I mean, people are doing business with people, so exactly. At the end of the day, this is obviously no one heard about that before. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Other questions, other thoughts? I'm going to pull out some of the questions that we got in advance.
I have a question, Omer.
Yes.
If
Yes,
my pipeline died, and we're it was a great pipeline, and it's dead. There were some deals that were just minutes before signing, beautiful deals. And some of them, I got a touching email from the prospect saying, you did hear the news, right? You know that we're not it's a very big diet related company. That is, nobody's going to buy diet now if they have no money for food. Or other fashion companies. Nobody's gonna buy a sexy underwear these days. This is not the time. So
Well, Amazon might tell you differently about the sexy underwear, but that's a whole different conversation.
Different approaches. Some will say that since I'm talking to the digital world, and those companies, they all shut down all their physical stores, and they know that their only chance to survive is digital. So there are a few ways.
I think you're bringing a very good point that I think is worth mentioning, which is how do you resurrect a pipeline in a world where you're hearing a no? And we're all getting a no, and we need to understand how to turn the no into a no but. And I think the way to do it is empathy plus question. I understand this is a terrible time. I did read the news. As you can imagine, we're all there. I want to understand if you're saying no because you don't see value at all in our solution, or because of resources. Because if the problem is that what we showed you has no value for you in the midterm, in the long term, and even a year from now, then I totally understand. But if the problem now is resources, you don't want to actually put money because you don't know where your business is, let's talk about that. Maybe we can have a slim implementation for 3 months as a design partner, and you'll pay later. Maybe we'll just pay activation fee. Maybe we'll do some kind of a rev share model and create some kind of a milestone. So when you reach a specific revenue line, similar to what you had 6 months, then you will pay me. Bring that into a conversation around when instead of if. And I think it's very possible to do so. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's challenging. It's talking to somebody that, just one of our customers is Groupon. Groupon laid off 60% of their employees. It's I think it was a 10,000 people company or something like that. Talking to a company like that, which laid off all the developers that I was talking to. So I need to find a new contact guy now, and they're already a paying customer. But such companies, you see them like me.
Absolutely.
They're all over.
Absolutely. And every single CEO now that pays for technology understand that when every dollar they pay for technology is one less employee that they can keep on the payroll. And that's heartbreaking. But sometimes you can switch this message to say, you also care about margins and efficiency in order to keep the employees you have on the payroll. And I can provide you that kind of efficiency. It's really about the wording. I would really try to say, I understand, but tell me, is it a resources or value? If they don't see value because their entire business changed, what's the point? But if the idea is resources, play for resources. Does it mean that maybe you will have to, bootstrap a bit more and give them some work for free for 60 days? Yes, we've done that. It's possible. But at least you don't get a no. You keep them at the table. You help them see beyond, I don't do any kind of technology deal right now because I'm cutting cost, into, okay, there's a resources constraint for the next 2 months. What can we do about that? That will keep them at the table. I promise.
Okay.
Any other, we have time for one more questions. And then I promise, by the way, my email is omer@guesty.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to talk at any time. Just say that you're part of the icon circle and I'll be very happy and glad to answer. One more questions. Anybody want to jump on?
Actually, Omer, I spoke in a webinar today about best rules, best practices of webinars. And one of the things that we spoke about is that you gotta end on time. We wanna keep them coming back for more, and we gotta be respectful of the time. So if anybody has another question, Tough, you should have asked for it before.
Correct, but just 5 things. So one less slide. If you take only 5 things from this before we get to the hour and being mindful of everybody, understand where you are in your sales org maturity. Don't go from 0 to N without going through the 1. Ask a lot of questions. It's important. Map all the right stakeholders and make sure that you meet their pain points and don't just talking about your product. Sell to their problems and issues, especially at this time. Not your value proposition, not what you thought they care about a year ago. What do they need right now? And lastly, be mature, thoughtful, professional. There are no yellow cards. And number 6, as we said, invest in customer success. Your customers are the best currency right now. Hopefully that was useful for everybody. Again, Omer@Guesty.com or through the icon people, but hopefully that was somewhat useful to some of you.
Thank you, Omer, so much.
Thank you.
I sent us in the chat a survey. Please take a minute to fill it out so we can keep on creating this valuable content for you. And I will share your email with them.
Thank you. Chag Sameach kulam.
Chag Sameach.
Thanks again.
חג שמח, תודה.
Bye everybody. Bye bye.
תודה רבה.
תודה, חג שמח. כולם הולכים.
ביי ג'סיקה.
ביי.